Prayer in relation to the Persian king in the story of Daniel 6 is really, really interesting when you pay close attention. Hi everyone, this is R.A. Sweeney here to bring you another passage from the book Praying with the Writings as part of the Praying with the Bible series. Today I want to jump back into Daniel 6 to look a little bit more at some really probably misunderstood things with prayer in this passage. So last week I talked about Daniel's prayers that ended up getting him thrown into the lion's den. And honestly, as I was writing this series, I was so excited to come to the prayers of King Darius when Daniel is in the lion's den. And I was so excited and just looking forward to it for quite a long time, honestly, just because it's such a cool story and it was so shaping for me. And I get there and there's no prayer. If you look real close, there is not a prayer in that whole passage. What you see is that the king stayed up fasting. He came to Daniel afterward and said, "Did your God save you?" And so the implication is that he probably did pray, but you don't actually see it. So that was interesting. And I think what's really interesting there is the Persians had their gods. The king probably considered himself to be a god. But when the cards were on the table, he prayed to Daniel's God because he had seen the power that Daniel had and that Daniel influenced in his kingdom. And maybe he didn't only pray to Daniel's God, but it really, really seems like he prayed to Daniel's God. So that's just this really cool way that Daniel's character, even when he just disobeyed the king and broke the law that the king had just made, was enough to get the king to be willing to come to Daniel's God in prayer. So that's really interesting. The other thing that I thought was interesting is Daniel gets in trouble for praying to someone that isn't the king during this month. He gets thrown in the lion's den, and so in response, the king prays to someone that isn't himself. So he breaks his own law, which is really interesting there too. And I don't really know what we do with that. I just thought it was interesting that that's how that worked. And then it was the servants who are thrown into the lion's den in the end. But just really thought it was interesting and really awesome to see how when the cards were on the table, he remembered Daniel. He remembered what Daniel acted like in his behavior, and he turned to Daniel's God when he really, really needed help. And so that's kind of my encouragement for us this week is like, as we go out into the world, like, are we presenting a God who is worth praying to in those moments? So that's what I have for this week. I hope it's a blessing. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.